if you have ever loved a woman deeply. Shown up consistently, answered every call, checked in every morning and night, offered your time, your attention, your loyalty, and even your resources, yet still found yourself replaced, ignored, or slowly faded out of her life. This question has probably haunted you in silence. Why do women so often become emotionally attached to men who treat them as if they do not matter, while overlooking the ones who give them everything for many men? This experience feels humiliating and confusing. You did what you were taught was right. You were kind, you were present, you were reliable, and still, you lost her. Most men explain this pain through bad luck, poor timing, or choosing the wrong woman. Some blame themselves for not being attractive enough, confident enough, or dominant enough. Others assume women are simply irrational or cruel. None of these explanations fully capture what is actually happening. This pattern is not random, and it is not a personal failure. It is rooted in deep psychological mechanisms that most people never question because they operate beneath conscious awareness. Women do not become addicted to emotional distance because they enjoy pain or chaos. They become addicted because distance, uncertainty, and emotional tension activate powerful survival-based systems in the brain. These systems were designed long before modern dating, texting, or relationship advice existed. When a man is always available, always reassuring, and always predictable, he removes the very emotional triggers that create desire in the first place. This video exists to explain a truth that is uncomfortable but liberating. Women often crave emotional intensity more than emotional comfort. They do not bond through consistency alone, but through feelings that feel alive, uncertain, and charged. When men misunderstand this, they unknowingly train women to devalue them. When men understand it, they stop begging for affection and start protecting their self-worth. In the next part, we will break down the fundamental principle of attraction and explain why being good is not the same as being desired, and why intensity matters more than devotion in the early stages of emotional attachment. Attraction does not form around kindness, consistency, or good intentions. This is one of the hardest truths for emotionally sincere men to accept. Women do not fall for the man who treats them the best, but for the man who makes them feel the most. Those feelings are rarely calm or comfortable. They are sharp, stimulating, and emotionally charged. They include curiosity, anticipation, tension, and sometimes even doubt. While men often associate attraction with safety and reassurance, the female emotional system responds far more strongly to uncertainty than to stability in the early stages of bonding. When a woman feels she completely understands a man, fully predicts his behavior, and knows she has secured his commitment, something subtle but powerful happens inside her. The emotional voltage drops. There is no longer a sense of pursuit, no emotional edge, no inner dialogue wondering where she stands. Her nervous system relaxes, but her desire fades. This is not because she consciously decides to stop liking him. It happens automatically, as a result of how attraction is wired. Intensity is the fuel of desire, and intensity is born from contrast, not abundance. A man who is always present creates no contrast. A man who is always reassuring removes tension. A man who always adapts himself to her needs eliminates polarity. In her mind, attraction requires friction. It needs a sense of challenge, of something not fully secured yet. The moment she feels she has a man emotionally, her attraction does not deepen. It often begins to shut down. This does not mean women enjoy hurting men or manipulating emotions. It means their emotional system evolved to prioritize signals of strength. selectivity, and self-direction over signals of submission or overinvestment. A man who centers his life around a woman too early sends a message he never intended to send, that he has little else competing for his attention. To her unconscious mind, this reduces his perceived value. Understanding this principle changes everything. It explains why devotion does not create desire, and why emotional restraint often does. In the next part, we will explore the psychological mechanism that makes emotional distance so addictive, and why uncertainty can hook a woman far more deeply than affection ever could. Emotional addiction does not begin with pleasure. It begins with imbalance. When attention is given and then withdrawn, the nervous system reacts far more intensely than when attention is given consistently. This is the same mechanism that underlies gambling addiction, social media obsession, and even substance dependence. The brain becomes focused not on satisfaction, but on relief in romantic dynamics. Emotional distance creates a craving loop that can be stronger than logic, values, or self-awareness. When a man who was once present becomes less predictable, a woman's mind does not calmly move on. It becomes activated. She begins replaying conversations, scanning for meaning, and questioning what changed. Delayed responses feel heavier than silence. Lack of explanation creates an open loop that her mind cannot close. Each unanswered question fuels imagination, and imagination amplifies emotion. This is not conscious manipulation. It is neurochemistry at work. Uncertainty triggers dopamine, the same chemical responsible for motivation and addiction. Dopamine is not released when something is guaranteed. It is released when something might be gained or lost. When a man is too consistent, too available, and too emotionally generous, there is no maybe. There is no chase. There is no emotional risk. As a result, her dopamine system stays quiet. She may appreciate him, respect him, or feel comfortable with him, but she does not crave him. Unpredictability, on the other hand, wakes the system up. When she cannot fully read a man, when she does not know exactly where she stands, her emotional brain becomes active. Thoughts loop. Curiosity grows, emotional investment increases, even if the experience is uncomfortable. This is why logic often loses to feeling in romantic choices. The body responds before the mind can intervene. Men often misunderstand this and assume that more love, more reassurance, and more presence will stabilize attraction. In reality, it often accelerates emotional disengagement. Understanding this dynamic is not about becoming cold or manipulative. It is about recognizing that desire feeds on space, not saturation. In the next part, we will explore why so many men fail by giving more when attraction begins to fade, and how this instinctive response actually pushes women further away. When a woman's interest begins to cool, most men respond with panic rather than awareness. They sense the emotional distance growing and instinctively try to close it. More messages are sent, more reassurance is offered, gifts appear, access becomes unlimited. He tries to prove his value through increased effort, believing that love is something that can be earned through persistence. From a male perspective, this makes sense. Effort leads to results in most areas of life. In attraction, however, effort often produces the opposite effect. The female emotional system does not reward abundance. It rewards contrast. When attention is scarce, it becomes valuable. When it is unlimited, it becomes invisible. Each additional message sent in desperation does not feel like devotion to her nervous system. It feels like pressure. It communicates that the man is more invested than she is, and that imbalance quietly shifts power away from him. What makes this especially painful is that men are taught to believe persistence is romantic. In reality, persistence without selectivity signals neediness. A man who keeps giving while receiving less teaches a woman how to treat him. Over time, she unconsciously learns that his time, energy, and emotions are always available at no cost. The mystery disappears. So does the tension that once made him emotionally interesting. The man she cannot fully understand becomes the one she thinks about the most. Not because he is cruel, but because he is not emotionally transparent. His inner world is not immediately accessible. His approval is not guaranteed. Her mind keeps returning to him, trying to decode him. Meanwhile, the man who explains everything, shares every feeling, and makes his intentions completely clear, gives her nothing to explore emotionally. This is why giving more rarely fixes attraction. It often accelerates the loss of it. The issue is not that the man is kind. It is that he gives without boundaries. Attraction requires polarity, and polarity cannot exist when one side is always reaching. In the next part, we will go deeper into the evolutionary and biological roots of this dynamic and explain why female psychology still reflects ancient survival mechanisms that shape modern dating behavior, even in a world that looks nothing like the past. To understand why this pattern is so persistent, you have to step outside modern dating advice and look at where female psychology was shaped. For nearly 200,000 years, human survival depended on selecting the right partner under harsh and unforgiving conditions. Safety was never guaranteed. Resources were scarce. Protection mattered in that environment. Attraction was not about emotional comfort. It was about survival. Women evolved to be drawn toward men who signaled strength, dominance, confidence, and access to resources. This unconscious drive is often described as hypergamy, the instinct to seek a partner perceived as higher in value, status, or capability. The man who was gentle, agreeable, and endlessly accommodating was not the one most likely to protect or lead in a dangerous world. The man who was selective, respected by others, and emotionally self-contained was. Even though society has changed dramatically, the emotional wiring has not. The female brain still responds to cues of power and self-direction, not because women are calculating, but because these signals once meant survival. When a man treats a woman as the prize, places her above his own life, and reorganizes his world around her too quickly, he unintentionally communicates lower value to her unconscious mind. This suggests he lacks options, confidence, or internal stability. Respect begins to erode, not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. Worship creates imbalance. Chasing creates distance. Overgiving trains her to expect without appreciating. This is why modern men feel confused. They are told to be emotionally available, expressive, and accommodating. Yet these behaviors often clash with ancient attraction triggers. The problem is not kindness itself. It is the absence of self-prioritization. A man who does not protect his time, his boundaries, and his sense of self becomes easy to access and easy to replace. Understanding this is not about blaming women or rejecting compassion. It is about seeing the invisible forces at play, so you stop sabotaging yourself. In the next part, we will examine why women so often stay attached to indifferent or even hurtful men, and why emotional turbulence can feel more compelling than emotional safety. One of the most misunderstood realities in dating is why women often remain emotionally tied to men who appear indifferent, distant, or even emotionally hurtful, while losing interest in men who are consistently caring and available. from the outside. This behavior looks irrational. From the inside, it feels intense and unavoidable. Indifferent men signal something powerful to the unconscious mind: selectivity. They do not appear easily impressed, easily attached, or easily shaken to the ancient emotional brain. This reads as dominance and high value. A man who does not rush to please, explain, or reassure communicates that his attention is not guaranteed. This creates emotional friction. The woman begins to invest more, not because she enjoys suffering, but because her nervous system interprets the uncertainty as something important that must be resolved. Emotional pain mixed with hope creates a roller coaster effect. And roller coasters are memorable. They make people feel alive. Calm roads do not. This is why women often return to men who caused confusion, tears, or emotional instability. Those men activated her emotions deeply. They created highs and lows that burned themselves into memory. Meanwhile, the man who offered steady devotion created comfort, not intensity. Comfort feels safe, but it does not always feel exciting. Attraction is not built on logic. It is built on sensation. Safe. Devoted men are often ideal partners on paper. They listen, they show up, they commit. But if they remove all emotional tension, they remove desire as well. Women tend to remember how a man made them feel alive more than how he made them feel protected. Emotional intensity leaves a stronger imprint than emotional stability, especially in the early stages of bonding. This does not mean women consciously choose pain over peace. It means their emotional system is drawn to stimulation over stillness. The mistake many men make is assuming love grows from comfort alone. In reality, desire must come first. Without it, devotion feels heavy rather than magnetic. In the next part, we will explore the hidden cost of being too open, too available, and too emotionally transparent too early, and why removing mystery often kills attraction before it has a chance to mature. When a man opens himself completely too early, he believes he is building trust. What he is often doing instead is eliminating curiosity. Emotional transparency without pacing removes tension from the dynamic. The woman no longer wonders what he thinks, how he feels, or where she stands. Everything is laid out clearly, neatly, and without resistance. While this feels honest and mature to him, it quietly turns off the emotional mechanisms that sustain attraction. Kind men often make the same mistake at this stage. They stop being challenging. They stop being selective. They offer full commitment before it has been earned. In doing so, they collapse polarity. There is no longer a sense of pursuit. There is no emotional distance for her to cross. When nothing needs to be discovered, the mind disengages. Attraction requires movement, and movement requires space. The less a woman knows about a man's inner world, the more her mind fills in the gaps. She imagines, she interprets, she projects meaning onto small signals. This mental activity creates emotional investment. Once she knows everything, the mind rests. Rest feels safe, but safety without desire leads to stagnation. The moment she feels she fully has a man, her subconscious concludes that there is nothing left to win, and when there is nothing left to win, there is nothing left to chase. This is why excessive availability is not romantic. It is familiar. It communicates that your time has no scarcity, your attention has no cost, and your emotional presence requires no effort from her. Over time, this trains her nervous system to deprioritize you. Not because she is ungrateful, but because the dynamic no longer stimulates her. Men often fear that withholding emotions means being dishonest. in reality. Pacing emotional access is a form of self-respect. Mystery is not deception. It is restraint. A man who reveals himself slowly signals confidence, stability, and inner fullness. He shows that his life does not revolve around being chosen. Understanding this distinction is critical, because attraction is not destroyed by kindness, but by the absence of boundaries. In the next part, we will shift from explanation to action and discuss how men can protect themselves emotionally, maintain self-respect, and create attraction without becoming cold, manipulative, or toxic. The solution is not to become cruel, emotionally unavailable, or manipulative. Many men hear this conversation and swing to the opposite extreme, believing they must act toxic to be desired. That is not only unnecessary, it is unsustainable. The real shift is internal, not performative. Attraction grows when a man values himself enough to stop over-explaining, over-giving, and over-investing before it is earned. Being unavailable does not mean ignoring her. It means having a life that does not pause on command. Mystery does not mean lying. It means allowing your inner world to be revealed gradually. Selectivity does not mean arrogance. It means choosing where your energy goes instead of offering it freely to anyone who shows interest. When you stop excessive check-ins and constant reassurance, you give her space to feel. Feeling is what creates attachment, not proof or persuasion. A man who is always trying to prove his worth communicates that his worth is questionable. A man who assumes his value and behaves accordingly creates a very different emotional response. He does not rush to secure validation. He does not chase clarity when uncertainty appears. He remains grounded in himself. This calm self-containment creates mild uncertainty, not through games, but through self-respect. She does not feel controlled. She feels challenged. When you make her earn your attention, something important changes. The dynamic flips. She begins to invest emotionally because investment follows effort. People value what they work for. This is not manipulation. It is human psychology. True power comes from being willing to risk losing her rather than sacrificing yourself to keep her. The man who cannot tolerate loss becomes desperate. The man who accepts it becomes magnetic. When you stop chasing, she starts feeling. Not because you became distant for effect, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. She becomes drawn not to cruelty, but to a man she cannot fully control, predict, or emotionally consume. A man who stands firmly in his own center creates gravity without force. This is how men protect themselves from being devalued, not by hardening their hearts, but by strengthening their boundaries. And when boundaries are strong, attraction has room to breathe. In the final part, we will tie everything together and explain why the man who values himself highly becomes the one a woman struggles to let go of, and how this understanding can change the way you approach relationships forever. When everything is stripped down to its core, the man a woman struggles to let go of is not the one who begged to be chosen, but the one who chose himself first. He is not emotionally closed, but he is emotionally sovereign. He does not disappear to create fear. Yet he does not overextend to create comfort either. He stands in a quiet balance that most men never learn, because they are taught that love is something you earn by giving more, not something you allow by being grounded. A man who values himself highly sends a signal that no words can replace. His time matters. His presence is intentional. His attention is not guaranteed. This does not make him cold. It makes him real, and reality creates gravity. Women sense when a man's life is full without them, when he is not seeking to be completed, rescued, or validated through a relationship. That sense of inner completeness is what triggers respect. And respect is the soil where lasting attraction grows. Desperation repels because it communicates fear of loss. Self-respect attracts because it communicates abundance of self. The man who fears losing a woman will tolerate behavior that slowly erodes his dignity. The man who respects himself is willing to walk away from dynamics that devalue him, even if it hurts, paradoxically. That willingness is what makes him hard to replace. Not because he threatens to leave, but because he genuinely can. This understanding changes how you approach dating, relationships, and even heartbreak. You stop asking how to make her choose you, and start asking whether the dynamic honors who you are. You stop chasing emotional clarity and start creating emotional stability within yourself. And from that place, attraction either forms naturally or fades quickly, saving you months or years of confusion and pain. If this message resonates, share your experience in the comments. Many men carry this pain silently, believing they are alone in it. You are not. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me as we continue breaking down the psychological misunderstandings that keep good men stuck in patterns that no longer serve them.